Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good to be with you. Good to be together in this sacred space at this holiest night of our week to welcome Shabbat, to take a deep breath and let the week go and enter into this day of rest and tranquility and restoration. Laura, good to be leading and praying with you this evening as well. And those of you that are with us tonight at home by live stream, we're happy that you are with us as well. Now's a good chance, as it is each week, to introduce yourself in the chat, to share some wishes and greetings for Shabbat. We're happy that you're with us this evening. We're going to begin this evening with our lighting of Shabbat candles. If Susan and Leah are here, I don't see them. We're going to begin on pages 2 and 3 of our prayer book, where you'll find the meditation and the blessing for these Shabbat candles. We'll begin on page 3. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We'll move in our books now to page 20, and we will welcome the Shabbat bride by inviting each other and the Sabbath bride to be a part of our gathering this evening. Lecha Dodi, pages 20 and 21.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pene Shabbat, nekabela. Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם הנסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Verse 5. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
We rise and face the entrance to welcome the Shabbat bride. Verse 9.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה,
still standing, friends, we turn in our books to page 28, our call to worship, Baruch Hu. On page 30, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochbeinu v'komeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nizmach b'divrei Toratecha, u'v'mitzvotecha, le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, u'bahem negeh yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. We'll continue on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
On page 39, we'll continue responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from violence, from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again, we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Mi Chamocha is on page 40. At the top of page 44 now, the words of Vishamru, the familiar tune, remind us about the enduring commitment and commandment for us to set aside a day each week to rest. The last word of this hymn, Vayi Nafash, describes the experience God felt after the completion of the 6 days of creation, that God ceased from work and, as translated here, was refreshed. But the root of that last word, Vayi Nafash, the root of that word is nefesh, which means soul or spirit. So we're reminded that when we take a day to rest, we can often find our souls returning to us. We are re-ensouled when we take a day to rest. So we take the next time, the next 24 hours, to just think about what the things are that help us feel like our souls are coming back to us after a week of work. Maybe it's time with loved ones. Maybe it's reading the book we've been putting off. Maybe it's sitting quietly or spending some time in nature or listening to music. Sometime over the next day, we will set aside times for ourselves and for our souls to rest and be refreshed.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We'll continue with our Amidah on page 46. Please rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך? מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. We'll continue on page 57. You are with us in our prayer, our love and our doubt. In our longing to feel your presence and do your will, you are the still clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. On page 60, we'll continue with Shalom Rav, our prayer for peace.
Shalom Rav, Ol Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Ol Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav, Ol Yisrael Amcha, Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
We'll take just a few moments now for our own individual silent prayer.
Yehiyu l'ratzon imrefi vehegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri vegoali. Adonai tzuri vegoali. May the words of my mouth, and the meditations of my heart, be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. Yehiyu l'ratzon imrefi vehegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri vegoali. Adonai tzuri vegoali.
Page 253. As we prepare to share Mishaberach, to join our voices and our prayers together in an expression of hope for healing and restoration for those in our families and in our community who are in need of healing on this Shabbat, we take just a second to call to mind those on this list of names who are finding themselves in the search for healing and wholeness this week. Tonight, before Mishaberach, we hold in our hearts Sarah Astrich, Elaine Betcher, Marcia Block, Bradley Borden, Ed Brook and Terry Brook, Melba Berman, Marie Cordova, Maya Crater, Richard Dana, Barbara Fenton, Leon Finkelstein, Carol Friedman, Marcine S. Goldman, Chuck Green, Christina Howard, Cam Hunter, Richard Jackson, Sarah James, Lawrence Levy, Bev Saltzman-Lewin, Leah Rabelais, Hattie Reese, Cooper Saul Roberts, Shirley Schnoll, Alan Selbst, Edward Simmons, Jerry Spencer, Lenny Weinberger, Yvonne Zients, Ariela Sharon Bat Yafa Shoshana, David Ben Chana, Gelka Nachama Bat Liba Chaya, Yoshua Matityahu Ben Yaakov V'Prevachana, Zahava Bat Miriam Bishner Zalman, and all those who are suffering with afflictions of body, mind, or spirit. Page 253.
Mi shebeirach source of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Friends, a few calendar announcements and a couple of invitations for you. Next Friday night, July 22nd, will be our next Community Shabbat dinner. Dinner will be at 7 o'clock, and next week we'll have two different Shabbat worship options, our 6 p.m. Kabbalat Shabbat service and our 8 p.m. Warehouse Shabbat service. Warehouse Shabbat, if you've not experienced one before, is a unique worship opportunity that is designed for adults of all ages. We'll ask you to first make reservations for dinner and then decide if you want to come for services first at 6 and then stay for dinner, or come for dinner first at 7 and then stay for warehouse at 8, or you can do all three and get a Shabbat triple header. But please do register for Shabbat dinner so we know that you'll be joining us. It should be a really terrific worship and community event next Friday night. I also want to let you know that there are still a few tickets that are still available for our night at the ballpark, which is Tuesday, August 9th. We have a block of tickets for the Astros game against the Texas Rangers. Please purchase your tickets online. Come and join us. It's always a great night, great time to hang out with some Temple friends and to watch some baseball. You can visit our website for everything else that is happening at Emmanuel this summer. We look forward to seeing you here and all around town to pray and play together. I want to say a word about our Torah portion this week. This week we're reading Parashat Balak, which comes from the book of Numbers, and it is a strange portion in which the Torah devolves suddenly and unexpectedly into slapstick comedy. The Parsha describes the adventures of Balaam, a hapless Moabite soothsayer who is commissioned by his king to go and pronounce a curse on the children of Israel during their sojourn in the wilderness. Balaam is ordered to foretell the Israelites' downfall and destruction, but God steps in to pull some strings. He gives Balaam's donkey the power of speech. The fortunes are reversed, the Israelites are saved, and Balaam finds himself pronouncing a curse against his own nation instead, and the Israelites go free. The pagan prophet returns to the king who sent him to announce the bad news that Moab is doomed to destruction because of a fateful star that will rise from Jacob. The idea that the stars and the planets can affect or even predict human affairs is, of course, a very ancient one. We don't very often think about astrology as being a particularly Jewish activity. Today we tend to categorize it as a superstitious way of looking at the world that's more in line maybe with pagan sensitivities than with Jewish ones. But historically, at least, that hasn't always been true. Some of the oldest Jewish homes and synagogues in the world were adorned with images of heavenly bodies, charts of the constellations, including some, by the way, uncovered in archaeological digs that the students who traveled on our Shirley Barish Memorial Israel experience this summer helped to excavate. The signs of the zodiac were a frequent theme in Jewish art and mystical text from the ancient world, and there are some remnants of those ancient themes that remain with us even today. We wish one another a mazel tov on a happy occasion. What is mazel? Well, a mazal is a sign in the heavens, a constellation. So when you wish someone else a mazel tov, we're expressing a hope that the stars will align for them, that they'll be blessed with a positive and productive astrological fate. And so how fitting it is that we read the story about a star rising from Jacob in this particular week, when our nation, and indeed the whole world, was marveling at the breathtaking images of deep space that were released by NASA just this week. I'm sure many of you spent some time looking at the pictures, just like I have. The images that were captured by the James Webb Space Telescope represent the deepest infrared view of our universe that human eyes have ever seen, far more detailed than anything captured by the Hubble, which was an unprecedented technological wonder of its day just a relatively short time ago. The images are awe-inspiring, even for lay people like me who are not normally space enthusiasts. If you've not taken the time to look them over yet, you must. They're easily available online, and I urge you to spend some time looking at these pictures. Each one reveals the awesome depth of our universe, filled with countless clusters of galaxies, gnarled and wobbly-looking nebulae, thousands upon thousands of glittering spangles of colored light that wink at us from an unthinkable distance away. All of it packed so densely into space, the scientists tell us, that every detail of one of those incredibly rich images takes up only as much space in the night sky as seen from Earth as a grain of sand held out at arm's length. Looking at these astonishing images, even if you're a little bit of a cynic, you begin to understand why our ancestors were so charmed and beguiled by the collage of patterns and images that they saw twinkling in the heavens. When you spend a little bit of time poring over those shapes and colors that humanity has never seen before, you start to feel a sense of something bigger than yourself, the uncanny presence of something transcendent and holy. It's funny, when they talk about these images and the technology that produced them, even scientists start to sound a little bit like mystics. One of the astrophysicists at the Goddard Space Center says, when talking about her experience viewing these images, she describes a heightened sense of connectedness and oneness with the universe that she felt. We're all made of the same stuff as this beautiful landscape, she marveled. This almost religious perspective draws heavily on some of the things you may have read that Carl Sagan wrote a generation or two ago. You might remember his famous quote about our elemental connection between humanity and the rest of the universe. Here's what he wrote in 1973. "All of the rocky and metallic material we stand on, the iron in our blood, the calcium in our teeth, the carbon in our genes were produced billions of years ago in the interior of a red giant star. We are made of star stuff." It's interesting, the blurring of the lines between science and spirit. And it might look at first blush as if what we're seeing here is a return to the superstition of the past, a reversal of the scientific mind toward the pre-modern sensibilities of the ancient astrologers who saw our fates written in the patterns of those constellations at night. But that's not what's happening, not really, because we have things now that those ancient stargazers never had. Knowledge and tools, science and understanding about what's really behind the movement of heavenly bodies and the glimmering of stars in the night sky as our planet tilts and spins through space. Because central to our modern Jewish theology is the recognition that we know things now that people didn't know thousands of years ago, even our most brilliant and revered sages. Human progress and human understanding grows and develops, and Judaism ought to evolve along with it. Otherwise, we'll be living a Bronze Age Judaism in a space age world. That's what I think it means to be a Reformed Jew in a post-Enlightenment world. We use the texts of yesterday and the tools of today to address the needs of the real world we inhabit. When Carl Sagan looked through his telescope and proclaimed that we are a way for the cosmos to know itself, he He wasn't imputing consciousness to the universe or suggesting that our lives are predetermined because our fate is dictated by the paths and positions of the stars. What he meant, I think, is something that I, as a religious person, and he, as a scientist, can wholeheartedly agree on, that our quest as Homo sapiens, literally wise humans, our quest is to pursue understanding, to grasp with marginally and slowly increasing accuracy the answers to our big questions about why we are here. Through knowledge and experience, through text and technology, we can connect with what is true, way out there and deep in here as well. That magnificent James Webb Space Telescope can't tell the future, but it helps us look into the past. It enables us to view the marvelous spectacle of the birth of ancient stars from unimaginably far away. And in so doing, we can find moral and scientific and, yes, spiritual guidance from recognizing our own smallness and frailty, the brevity of our time on earth. Those things can generate in us a sense of connectedness and responsibility to this small patch of rocky star stuff on which we stand and the larger world which all of us share. A sense of oneness and kinship with the bafflingly large universe in which our pale blue planet spins doesn't require a belief in astrology or magic, but if it instills in us a sense of stewardship, a sense of connectedness, a sense of responsibility, not only for our own patch of earth, but the full breadth of God's creation, then it will have met the highest goals hoped for by scientists and sages alike. The star that the Bible speaks about, the star that rises from Jacob, is not a literal ball of gas and dust in unimaginably distant space. It is, I think, the light of goodness and inspiration that we, who are the descendants of Jacob, undertake as the heirs of Judaism and the caretakers of our tradition, to let that light rise and shine and guide our path into the brilliant and hopeful future ahead. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I want to invite you to join me back in our books now. On page 282, at the bottom of the page, we'll open the ark and rise together for Aleinu, page 282 at the bottom.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 287.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. As we prepare for Kaddish this evening, I'd like to share the poem at the bottom of page 291, thinking as we are this week about stars and their distant light. Ish kochavim she'oram magia arza rak ka'asher hem atzmam avdu ve'enam. There are stars up above, so far away, we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. And so our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, and those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We take just a moment now to do the quiet work of memory. We think now of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. On this Shabbat, we call to mind the names of those whose yahrzeits fall at this season. Together we remember Harry Allen, Stuart H. Babinger, Sue Baird, Edith C. Baumol, Edward Sonny Becker, Bea Berman, Ruth Braun, Mitchell Irwin Breer, David George Brooks, David Brown, Frank Brown, Robert S. Bruno, Dory Bull, Jules Cass, Elizabeth S. Clark, Shiva Kogan, Bonnie Cohen, Shirley Cohen, Abe M. Davis, Sonia DeWitowitz, Sybil Oshman-Dushkin, George Edelstein, Sadie Ellis, Helene Fallick, Rachel Fetterman, Lisa Ann Federow, Bernice Feld, Jack Fink, Michael Lawrence Fink, Lucy Fiss, Rose Fishbein, Helen Ober-Fram, Lillian Frank, Stephen Richard Gans, Melvin Goodman, David Gordon, Dorothy Grant, Miriam Graubart, Mamie King Harris, Frederick Hodgkins, Harry Holdsberg, Roy Howard, Fanny Hussman, Gertrude Ingram, Dorothy Inselberg, Harold Joseph, Mrs. Kalantarove, David Kapeloff, Rose Kemeny, Sally Kesselman, Perry B. Klein, Cami Knoller, Marjorie Wolf Landy, James Limpert, Tilly Lenzner, Elsie Levin, Marlon Lewis, Ronnie Light, Yvonne Littell, Manash Mayance, David N. Miller, Saul Norman, Lillian Pasternak, Sarah Rabineau-Pesikoff, Jackie Proler, Edward J. Pulaski, Nina Regenstreif, Perla Roth, Mervyn Rosenbaum, Harold C. Sachs, Morris Joseph Samuels, Ruth Schnitzer, Helen Schwartz, Edith Shep, Martin Sherman, Esther Silber, Harold Slavin, Carl Solomon, Beverly Ruth Kaplan Spear, Bryna Bernice Stallero, Jack Stein, Nanette Steinhardt, Jay Sterling, Francisca Stern, Fanny Stuhl, Sigmund Strauss, Meyer Tillum, Ellis Tichy, Ruth Van, Rochelle Wachowski, Barry Weinbaum, Tina Weiss, Sarah Wexler, Morris Whiteman, and Marilyn Zimmerman. The memories of all the departed are with us as we turn to page 294 and rise for Kaddish, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlamma rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
O say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'yimeru amen.
Please be seated. We'll continue now with the blessings of Kiddush and Motzi, giving thanks the fruit of the vine and the food that sustains us. Turn in our books to follow along. Blessing of Kiddush is on page 4 and 5. Page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen and l'chaim. Give you that.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
I'll take a bite of that challah while Laura prepares for our closing song. Our closing song is on page 323 at the bottom of the page, or the top if you'd like to read in the Hebrew. Page 323.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boechem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Would you please rise for a final moment of benediction? Ribono shel olam, eternal spirit of the universe, whose word spoke unimaginable galaxies into existence, and yet which also echoes silently and intimately inside us all. May your word guide us to deeds of goodness, toward acts of compassion and kindness. May we, with you, make this world one of gentleness and goodness and peace. Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.